Hi, my name is CJ and this is my RC channel. I wanted to spare you having to watch me rebuild the rear diff, since there's nothing different other than the weight of the diff loop. So the build continues with assembling the center differential. As I mentioned, I'm not going to be using the telemetry, at least not anytime soon, so I don't need these sensors, or this sensor in particular. So I will put that away somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and put the screw back in place. Okay, so this one, I should have the correct kit for the center diff, and I am not using a slipper clutch. Slipper clutches are fine for bashing, but if you're going to race on or off-road, you want a center diff. And I picked up a stock Traxxas center diff, and this is an aftermarket made by Hot Racing. It's a diff case for this, aluminum, and comes with seal and hardware. So, and this one does look like it's shaped correctly for this particular application. The center diff is different than the diffs at the front and rear. So we're going to start by taking the spur gear off of the diff assembly. And I've already put one of the one of the ceramic bearings into place here. Looks like we're going to have a handful of extra bearings. These little bearings were probably used on the steering. I mean, that's nice that they give you the ceramic bearings for the steering yoke. I just don't see that as being an area where bearing performance is an issue. But it definitely looks like we've got a few extras, and I definitely swapped everything out as I went, so I'm not sure what that's about, but I suspect that, well, right off the bat, if you're running a slipper clutch, there's another bearing that we don't have with this. I'm going to set these aside over here, and I definitely need to take this off. Okay, you have these two side pieces here on each of these gears, and you want them to drop right into these grooves at either end. There we go. That looks like that's going to do just fine. And we're using the 40,000 weight. Got a little O-ring here instead of the standard gasket. You kind of want to get it seated. There's a little groove down in the bottom here. Okay, it looks like it needs a little more. If you think this looks like it's kind of tricky to figure out how much fluid to put in there, my Serpent SRX 8E GT car, 1/8 scale GT car, the diffs have a weight, as in a physical weight, and you've got to put them on a scale, like a little micro kitchen scale, and it tells you exactly how many grams it should weigh with the correct amount of fluid. So that's a fun one. Now this side's all dry. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of black grease on the shaft here where it's going to exit the aluminum housing. Because there are no bearings. And the weight on it tells you when you've got enough fluid in there. So basically, I've got this thing on a little digital scale, and I was using the tip of an X-Acto knife to add, you know, little bits of, you know, I started with a larger amount of fluid, but then to try to get that weight correct, I was adding and removing just the tip of a X-Acto blade's worth of diff fluid until I achieved the correct weight. If you're curious about that, check out the videos on that car. It's a neat build. Now remember, don't tighten everything down all at once. Kind of work a star pattern and just get it to touch down, and then start tightening them from there once you've got all four started. That's a nice diff action right there. I mean, it's tight because of the how thick the fluid is, but it's nice and smooth. So I can go ahead and pack up this old one with its assorted parts and hardware. And if I ever bust this up and I need it fast fix, I can go ahead and switch that out. So there we go, nice smooth diff action. Love it. Great. So there we go with that. So I am done with the diff fluid. Now, I'm not sure. I think I got to put this in first. Okay, I guess it goes in that way. And 4 of those, or 2 of those. And there's supposed to be some longer ones. Longer than that. There we go. And the shorties go in the top. Yes, I could use the electric driver on this, but this is the last place I would want to strip out any of these screws, because then I got to replace the entire pan. Always remember that you're working with plastic there. Okay, and the cutouts go face downward. Now, I'm going to be leaving the bumper off for the time being, so I'm going to go ahead and put in a slightly shorter screw to hold that plate in place. And if I do decide to use the rear bumper, if it's going to fit with the body I'm using, great. Otherwise, nope, that's not long enough. I actually may have to use the bumper to cap these end pieces, and if it won't fit on the body, I may cut this off or fabricate a little plate to go across the back here. And if I cut it, I'll just order another bumper to have that for when I start off-roading this later in the season. But from now, I'll just leave it as it is. Those things aren't, I don't think they're going to come sliding out on me. Anyway. Just want to keep that out of the way while I'm working. So it's time to mount up the motor. And I may have been premature on that. Okay, that's how you adjust it, but how do you attach it to this plate? I wonder if that's a through hole or a notch. It's a notch. I thought I had it. I was correct. Spare pinion gear, probably the wrong pitch, because this is a pretty harsh pitch, but I may use it on another vehicle at some point, so save the electronics instructions. May need that for something. Okay, so this is gonna go in like that, and the motor's gonna go on here, so we want the wire connectors to be up or over to the side a bit. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. That works. Let's see if these are the correct size. I'm using a countersunk, about 4 millimeter probably. Is good. Okay. So I'm going to break out the blue Loctite for these, since they didn't come with any Loctite on them, and I don't want these loosening up. So I'm going to pull the other one out in just a second and put some blue Loctite on that one too. Now, let me get a pinion size here. Okay, let's see what came with it. Because that is one big shaft. That may be a problem. What do we got here? 16 tooth, that would do. These look like they are too small to fit on the out shaft for this. This looks like it's good though. So I may be limited to 16 tooth for the moment. Okay, that's good forward and back, so I can tighten this down. Okay, now first I need to anchor this before I really tighten down on that. So let's see. Too long. Yeah. Got a little ahead of myself there. Those are probably the two shorter ones. And I knew I forgot something. I wonder if I can get this on. This way. Nope, I'm gonna have to take one end or the other off, and it's probably easier to loosen the front, especially now that I've sunk all these extra bolts in. And getting ahead of myself, but this is the kind of stuff you learn when you're working with a new vehicle, and you make a mistake that you never make again, and then soon you're taking the thing apart in 10 minutes. So I should be able to loosen these up super fast this way. There we go. That was quick and easy. I will tighten them up by hand. You want a certain amount of what's called gear lash. In other words, you don't want the gears straight up against each other. You want a little bit of wiggle. One of the ways we used to do that, figure out the right amount, was to like run a strip of paper between the gears. But over time you kind of learn to do it by feel. That should do just fine. So if it's too tight, one gear up against the other, they bind. It'll run slow, and the gears will damage each other over time. Okay, rock and roll. Let's have a look in here. I know this is just a receiver box, but I want to see how things go together. And there's no flat spot to mount the ESC, so I'm probably gonna need to come up with something. Maybe a small piece of fiberglass or something that'll screw down to the holes here. or even thin modeler's grade plywood. Anything to create a flat platform that the ESC can be attached to. Okay, that looks like the wire entrance. So the wires would come in here, and between this piece of rubber and this piece of rubber being clamped over the wires, it would create a seal. Nice. So this has a little plastic, a clear plastic, like a post that would sit on top of an LED light on a receiver, and that way the light would travel up that plastic post and illuminate here. But that would be relative to a very specific receiver. There's a little bit of two-sided tape and some residue in here. I'm guessing that these roller kits came with some hardware, and someone stripped them down to sell them as rollers, which is fine with me. I wanted to use my receiver anyway, and I didn't want to use a sensorless motor. I wanted a sensored motor. I wanted to be able to choose my own electronics. So nothing against Traxxas Electronics. They've got some nice stuff going these days, especially with all their telemetry options, but that kind of stuff doesn't really interest me. Nice on and off switch for the reset. So we're just going to be plugging this in right about here, but probably the other way. Let's see. Okay, A, B, and C, there's our 3 motor leads. So those are going to be a real short hop. And you know what? My receiver is so small, I may get rid of this altogether. I may get rid of this. Any airplane fans out there? We're all supposed to go out, repeat the same thing all together. And stop calling me Shirley. Okay, what I think I may do is just create one plate right here and put the motor, the ESC this way, and put my receiver right there, or even on top of the servo, because my receiver's quite small by comparison. I'm going to go ahead and kind of wind this up a little bit so it's not so much in the way. There we go. Because if I do it like that, my motor leads are going to be really short. That means power goes straight in. Battery leads are also going to be short. I could still mount it this way, but I don't want these rubbing up against the drive shaft, so I would have to do it like this. And I don't necessarily like that either. So those holes don't go through to the bottom, So I would need to mount it to something that I screw down here. Okay, I'm going to think about it for a minute, pause up the video, figure this out. Well, I've thought about it, and I really don't need this box because my receivers are waterproof already, so that's not an issue, and I'm not going to be driving this through lakes and stuff. It's or even puddles. I'm not going to be bashing. I'm going to be racing on groomed tracks or on asphalt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of this, which is some 3.5 millimeter fiberglass, 3.2 millimeter, and I'm going to see what kind of space I need here. How wide is this? Oh, okay. So 50 by, I'm going to go from that hole past there. Okay, so 90 by 50 millimeters. And I'll cut myself a rectangle out of this and measure out some holes. And basically I'll just drill some countersinks in here. And I'll use 1, 2, 3, and 4. That should anchor that plate nicely. And then I can do speed controller like that, and receiver right there next to the antenna mount. Should be perfect. Bundle up these wires. You know, again, the giant wire, so you know, it's possible I may pull these at some point and use them in another vehicle, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the length on them, but I'm going to try and tie it up as neatly as I can. What I might do is, there's some space here, I might run it underneath the platform and run it like around this way a couple times, both of them, and have them come out from under and plug in to the receiver. That would make a nice clean setup. But this way I'm going to have, you know, wire connections from ESC to motor that aren't more than 2 inches long max. So that's going to be good, because it'll be a good transference of power. And likewise, 2 lines over here to the battery, a couple of 5 millimeter posts. I've already got those. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. So I've got these parts for later. Because like I said, my receiver is waterproof and it's a fraction of the size of this box. So why have this giant thing in place? Now this will weigh a little bit, but not substantially. And it'll provide a good solid mounting. So just going to leave these 2 in there. few more things to screw back in place. No, I don't need them that long. Okay. There we go. Gotta say, it looks nicer with all the stainless hardware. This is another thing that's never going to get used. This is for the motor wires on a censored motor or sensorless motor that is stock, and they are a lot longer, and you anchor them to the side. Mine are going to be soldered straight to the motor to ESC. There's not going to be any slack or any unnecessary slack. Let's see. I think I'm going to wait on those until I do the shock absorbers. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.